Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business for a very helpful half hour to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business. Welcome to another episode of Handle Your Business with yours truly, Lady Lashley. Today I have with me Dr. Monique Caruth. She is a physiotherapist. Hi, Doc.
Hi, Glendora. How are you?
All right, I'm good. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me on this podcast. And I've got to say that I'm very, very happy and excited for you because you have now become a podcaster yourself. So that's a good thing.
Yes, and it is indeed an honor that you invited me to be on your podcast. I first heard about you through my dad because he religiously listened to your talk show in the morning. I believe it was in the morning.
Yes, that
you had it on Radio Tambourine. He kept saying, "Oh, there's this young lady who has like really great views on thing, and people calling in, and you know, she gives them her mind and stuff like that." And I was like, "You sure it's not Zelma Kawi?" He was like, "No. It's a young person." So my first trip back home, like one morning I got up and he was listening to you, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I didn't know like who you were and stuff like that because I left home in 1999. So the most people that I was familiar with was people who went to Bishops or people I played sports and stuff with. So and then you reached out to me. I think it was my second trip back home.
Right.
And that's when we finally met in person. And I think he was more excited to actually take me for the drive so he can meet you.
well, I am very, I'm very, it's really, you know, one of those things that I don't know. I think I was amazed when you told me that. I too was very happy. You wouldn't even believe. I was very happy that I got to just meet him and see his vibes. Very chill, very, very chill gentleman. You know, as we say here in Tobago, you come from good stock, right? And of course, your younger sister, I think, was my year mate in secondary school. So just to see him, you know, and make that connection, I was like, wow, you know. But anyways, we could talk a lot about your dad. May his soul rest in peace. But I think it's one of those things that I cherish. Because I remember he gave you like a genuine Tobago nugget. I mean, you know how things can happen here. And, you know, he was just like that calm voice to say, "Hey, listen, cool down, think about it some more." You know what I mean? So that was really, life is something else, right? It's amazing. Because as you said, I didn't know you either. I just heard your name. And at the time I was looking for a physiotherapist. And that's why we're here today, because we're discussing understanding physiotherapy. Of course, coming out of my own experience, not personally, but with a relative who needed to have physiotherapy and not knowing anything about physiotherapy / physical therapy, you know, kind of thinking, well, hey, that's something, you know, that you have a physio for sports teams, football teams, basketball teams, etc. But coming to the realization that everyday people, particularly people who, you know, have illnesses and so on, they may need a physiotherapist. And given the landscape in Tobago and the Caribbean region, I felt it was just important, you know, to have this educational nugget around physiotherapy so that whoever listens to this podcast episode in our space will have a better understanding about it. So just give me a brief background about your work in physiotherapy. You are based in the USA. So maybe you can just talk to us about your practice, what made you get into physiotherapy, what exactly is physiotherapy?
Okay, so the thing that you just said is so true, because when I first realized even the idea of physiotherapy, I was actually watching a cricket game. I believe I was around 13 years old, because I was in like Form 2 going into Form 3 at Bishop's. And, you know, that's usually when you have to try to pick your subjects, like what you want to concentrate on for CXC. So I believe it was like the end of Form 2 going into Form 3. And I was watching a cricket test series between West Indies and India. And one of the players, I think it was Sachin Tendulkar at the time, got injured. And so this guy running out in the same outfit that the Indian players were wearing, with a big bag, attending to him. And on the screen, and the announcer said, "Oh, this is the physiotherapist, and he's attending to it." So I was like, "Whoa, that's what I want to do, right?" Because I know I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be like a doctor doing surgeries, or, you know, just a plain old doctor. So that actually struck me. So my first impression of physiotherapy was just sports therapy. And I left home with the intention of only doing sports medicine and working in sports physical therapy. Now, it was such a huge challenge, because no one really talked about physiotherapy as a profession back home. It was only engineering, medicine, law that a lot of our teachers and parents wanted to push us into. And it was tough finding a mentor to even guide me along the steps of what I needed to do. So a lot of it was my own research. And with the limited financial capabilities that my parents had, and also limited educational ability to, I know that for me to even pursue anything beyond secondary school education, I will probably be limited to like the University of West Indies. So I looked at the options for the campuses where they offered physiotherapy, and realized that Mona was the only place available, UE Mona.
Yeah.
But the degree that they were offering at the time was similar to an associate's degree that is offered in the States. And usually with the associate's degree here, it's you become a physical therapy assistant. So you are a licensed therapist, but you're not allowed to do like evaluations and discharges and stuff like that. You just pretty much follow the plan of care of a licensed physical therapist. So, but I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted something more, because I saw myself more. And people couldn't understand it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take whatever time it takes to get there. So even after graduating from Bishop's, I stayed at home for 2 years and worked. First at airport, then at a car dealership, then at TSCT, trying to source scholarships and some funding from the government to assist with traveling to the US. So I finally got a soccer scholarship offer to Campbell University, where they paid for my tuition and other expenses. So I left after taking the SATs. So before that, I was fortunate, and I always keep telling people that God finds a way to bring people into your life. I believe it was my grandmother, who was my dad's mom, was involved in a car accident, and she had to go to the hospital at Scarborough General Hospital up at the fort. And I happened to go with them, and there was an Indian physiotherapist at the hospital at the time. So that was my first time that I actually met her, and I asked if I could shadow her while she's working, and she agreed to it. And she talked about the options of studying in Europe or Canada. And I was like, not Canada, definitely, because I can deal with that cold weather. So I looked into the other option of coming to the US. My only other time ever being in the US was in 1996 when I was selected from a essay competition that I had to do to go to the Olympics in Atlanta when the US held it. So that was my only other trip to the US prior to leaving to come to study in 1999. So I came to Campbell, which was in North Carolina, stayed there for 2 years and transferred to Howard because I wanted to actually obtain the master's in physical therapy degree at Howard. So while in the PT program, our first semester, they asked us like what area of physical therapy we wanted to get into. And that's when I realized that there are so many options where you could be a physiotherapist in.
Right.
But I was adamant that, look, I only want outpatient sports orthopedic clinics. And one of my professors looked at me, he laughed, and he was like, I'm going to make sure you test every single thing because I will guarantee that you will change your mind. And I told him, nope, it's not going to happen. So they satisfied my first request, and I did an outpatient sports setting. And I did that for 7 weeks. And it was then it hit me that, do I really want to be working with athletes? So it was good. It was challenging. It was busy, but there was a lot of like conflicts of interest and stuff like that. Because even though you realize that some athletes aren't prepared to go back to play because of money or some sort of financial gain, sponsorship, whatever it is, athletes just being stubborn and hard-headed, some of them, throw your advice out the window and do whatever they want to do anyway. Mm-hmm. So my second clinical experience was actually at a hospital. And I was like, you know what? I'm open to trying all settings. So the hospital experience was pretty good. I did an experience at a nursing home. I realized that really wasn't for me. But following that experience, all my other settings were in acute care settings at hospitals. And I happened to get placed at Johns Hopkins, and that I was there for 8 weeks. And it was a really great clinical experience for me because I got to see cardiovascular patients, people with wounds and everything like that. So it really opened my eyes to be like, physical therapy, physiotherapy is not just limited to athletes and sports. I never got any experience in the home health setting, which is what I primarily do now, because that's pretty much limited or non-existent in PT schools, but more programs are actually doing that now. But when I graduated, I ended up in an orthopedic outpatient setting. So I worked for a group of 6 surgeons, and they did primarily like hip surgeries, knee surgeries, shoulder surgeries. So day in, day out, for 5 years, those were the patients that I was seeing. To not lose my skills, my acute care skills, I did do some hours at a local hospital, which was located at, less than 30 minutes from my house, just to keep up my acute care skills.
Right.
And so while I was working with the surgeons, it comes to a point, I don't want to say it was burnout, but when you have a dream planted inside of you, no matter what you try to do to avoid it, it keeps coming back up like, hey, look, this is not where you're supposed to settle. You're supposed to be going in this direction. And I'm not gonna lie, the pay was exceptionally well at that clinic where I was at. And for someone my age, it was a blessing. So when I shared with my parents that I wasn't feeling fulfilled or satisfied, or I didn't feel like I was giving my patients my all, even though they were having good outcomes and recovering well, they were like, no, come on for 2 weeks, or, you just probably need to take a break, all that stuff. My mom was like, you need to pray and, do all that stuff. So I did come home for about 2 weeks. Felt good. I mean, the sea bath was great. Being with family, everything was good, because it was like around Christmas time as well too. Right. I came back, I felt refreshed, but I went back to the clinic and it was still not right. And I remember having a conversation with Anisha, and she's that's my second sister, the middle one.
Right. Yeah.
She is more of like the cautious one out of the three of us. So she would explore all angles and then give her opinion. And she was like, well, consider this, consider that sort of stuff. So I was like, okay. So I continued to pray about it. Then that following week, I was still getting tested. And one of the surgeons called upstairs and he said he had someone for me to see. It's a friend of his, and he wanted me to squeeze that person in. And at first I was like, man, this is disrespectful. He's just trying to mess up my schedule, that sort of stuff. But I was like, okay, fine, send the person up. It happened to be a physician as well. She had just gotten injured from a ski incident that she went on. Mm-hmm. And I was doing the testing on her, and she hadn't done an X-ray or MRI as yet, but I told her that I'm 95% certain that she probably tore her meniscus. And she said, okay, well, she's going to schedule to get the MRI done, but she'll let me know. But a conversation ensued, and she was like, I can tell you don't belong here. And I was like, what do you mean? This is somebody that I just met. Right. In under 40 minutes. And she was like, I'm sure that by the next time I come back, you probably won't be here. And I just, laughed and chuckled it off or whatever. All right. So told her get the MRI, and then we can discuss further visits and stuff like that. But I told her how we'll probably approach treating it and everything like that. Then I got a phone call from a former classmate of mine. We did our master's program together, and he shared that Howard was gonna offer my class, because initially when I transferred to Howard, the goal was that they would have a doctorate in physical therapy. And that was the reason why I transferred there, that they offered that if you did a 6-year program, a few years in undergrad, and then went to the grad program, you graduate with your doctorate in physical therapy. But things didn't work out that way when I was there. So they decided to finally offer the doctor in physical therapy program. And they reached out to our year, because we were the year that it was supposed to start with. And they said, if we come back for 1 year, we can just finish that year and graduate with a doctor in physical therapy degree. So I reached out to the practice manager, and I thought it would have been pretty easy, because I was a dedicated employee. I didn't really take vacations. I was there every single day. I was never late. I worked overtime. Yes, even though overtime was a time and a half, I was there on weekends. I was just working. So you would think that a place that values you would want to reward you with something if you're elevating yourself and probably doing something that would benefit the practice as well too.
Right.
And she said, she was basically like, no, we are not going to cut your hours for you to go back to school. And I was like, the classes are going to be online, so I could do part-time hours. And she's like, no. And I was like, ain't this a bitch? So, I had some things to think about, and like, okay. So I thought about it, and a series of events just kept happening that kept saying that, look, I got you. This is not where you need to be. So I guess things finally hit the fan one morning because I've been asking for her to make some repairs to our office, and it snowed heavily the previous week, and we happened to have an earthquake, which rarely ever happens in Maryland. So there was a little bit of structural damage. So with the snow falling, and we were on the top floor, stuff was leaking. So before I even got to the office that morning, one of my assistants called and said, look, the office is flooded. The carpets are damp. Stuff is leaking. There's water dripping, coming from the ceiling, that sort of stuff. I was like, well, don't allow any patients to go in there because we don't want any stuff. I'm on my way. So I get there. I call the practice manager, took photos, tell her everything that's happening. And I was like, look, I've been asking you to do these repairs, so forth. She's going back and she's like, it's not really a priority right now. And there was an incident that happened that I know they took a lot of money out to cover an error that had happened with a surgeon. So, and what ended up happening for them to save money is that they let go of a few employees that would cover that money that they had to dip into to pay for that error, and that rubbed me the wrong way.
Right.
So I was like, look, this is an ethical dilemma. What more proof do you need to be out of this? So I sat at the desk and I wrote a resignation letter without any hesitation. I printed it. I put it in an envelope. I went downstairs, and every single surgeon that was there, I thanked them for the experience and the opportunity for allowing me to work there, and for even sponsoring me to go from a student visa to the specialty H-1B visa in order to get my green card. So I thanked them, and I told them I was leaving. A few asked, why, if there's anything they could do to make me stay, that sort of stuff. I said, nah, I'm going to go back to school. This is what I'm going to do. And they were like, all the best. Let us know if you need like referrals and stuff like that. People play those platitudes, but they never really materialize and stuff like that. So I did end up giving the practice manager my resignation. But I really didn't have a plan B besides knowing that I was going to go back to school.
Gotcha.
So, so I sat in my car and, I drove home, and then I was like, whoa, what did you do? That sort of stuff. But I was grateful that I was smart and that I was saving, money and stuff like that. So I figured while I was in school, I can do something that's not going to require a lot of my time as a clinician. So a friend of mine was doing home health. She's a nurse. And she was like, hey, you could come pick up a few cases. And that's how my experience with home health started. Wow. So it was a brand new field for me. And I loved it because I was working one-on-one with the patient in their home setting. I got to have conversations, see exactly all the factors that was involved that could contribute to the outcome of this patient. So I realized that this was the space for me to thrive in. And after graduating with my doctoral degree, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should do my own thing, because I have the skill, I have the talent, and that's how I started contracting as a physical therapist. And I was like, you know what? People kept asking, do you have other people that could work and go to these areas and stuff like that? So that's when I started trying to build a team with other contractors, and hence my business now. So
yeah,
that's
that's an amazing journey.
It's been a crazy ride, but
yeah. The thing about it is that, you know,
yep. But fulfilling.
yeah, because you kind of, you know it and you hear it. I mean, going through it is one thing, but you kind of always get the reinforcement that, you know, when you're going through some of your most challenging periods, it really is you being on a path, you know, on a path through to realizing some of, you know, the better things that can happen for you. So that's definitely an amazing journey, and you could definitely perhaps even start later on in your life, I suppose, going around the country doing some motivational speeches, because the sad thing about it is that that is a perpetual reality. You know, it's especially for people of color. It just is what it is. So that's an amazing thing. But just very quickly, if you were to say what exactly physiotherapy is and who it is meant for.
Okay, physiotherapy is basically rehabilitation from any injury, illness, weakness, trauma. We work on neuromuscular issues. We work on cardiopulmonary issues. We work on pelvic issues, like if you're having incontinence issues, whether with urine, bladder, or bowel. We also work with kids. We do pediatric therapy. We do aquatic therapy. We do wound care as well too. So they're wound care physical therapy specialists. So the neurotherapists work with people who have stroke, people who have multiple sclerosis, Guillain-Barré, any type of autoimmune disorders. We work with them to help them to be able to achieve better function. We work with people with chronic illness, diabetes. We work with oncology patients. So if you're going through chemotherapy, radiation, you have lymphedema. We have lymphedema trained therapists who help to work on reducing the lymphedema so you can move better and get around better. So what I hate to hear people say is that because you have swelling or shortness of breath and you can't move, you should just be sitting there. That's the worst thing for you. And with physical therapy, no matter how deconditioned you are, it helps. Any little helps. And that's where we come in. One of the things I love about home health is because we are one of the first people to actually work with patients once they're out of the hospital after a prolonged hospital stay. So we get them to a point where they are confident and stable enough to actually go visit like a clinic to do another level of care. So one of the worst things to do is to lose your independence and function. And this is where physiotherapy helps. So it's not just working with high functional athletes. We work with kids who have Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, any sort of cognitive delays and deficits. We work with them. So we treat all populations and all ages.
That's an amazing kind of field.
So it's a great profession to be in.
Yeah, you talked about a number issues and illnesses, diabetes. Diabetes is still pretty common in our space. How does physiotherapy help diabetes patients exactly?
Well, one of the beautiful things about being a physiotherapist is that you get to educate. So if someone has uncontrolled diabetes, monitoring your blood sugar levels is very important in controlling your quality of life and to prevent you from having further kidney damage that you end up with end-stage renal disease to go on dialysis. So we educate on like what foods to eat, exercises to do, because exercises will help with controlling your glucose levels and helping you to monitor it better. So we advise on nutrition. We give exercises that are tolerable for that patient depending on their level, their glucose level. We also work with patients if they have like diabetic ulcers. We do the wound care. We work along with nurses to do that as well too. We instruct caregivers for those families to limit, their sodium and sugar intake. So those are things we definitely work on. We give guidelines as to avoid sitting on certain or laying on certain things for too long to prevent developing like sacral ulcers and stuff like that, because people who are diabetic are prone to having ulcers.
Wow. Okay. And you spoke about physiotherapy being quite useful for chronic diseases. I think I read somewhere that people with asthma can actually benefit from physiotherapy. Is that so?
Oh, yes, definitely. So we do have cardiopulmonary physical therapists. And there are guidelines for people who have congestive heart failure, people who are chronic asthmatic, people who have COPD, lung cancer. So we work on actual breathing techniques, using diaphragmatic breathing and other pursed breathing and other stuff to help people to manage stresses and to recover well after activity. So if you get winded going up a flight of stairs, climbing up some stairs, we train you on how to safely go up and down the stairs, doing breathing techniques so that you can manage to do it and not feel like you're going to pass out or collapse, just walking, a couple feet or going up and down the stairs. Or even trying to bend over to tie your shoelace and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Those are a lot of things people take for granted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't miss it you don't realize what you have until it's gone. So, you try to bend over to tie your shoes and you're someone who has like congestive heart failure or COPD, and you realize that you can't do it. You can't even breathe, bending over to tie your shoes. You're calling someone, your grandchild or someone to come help you tie your shoelace. And, I didn't realize back then when my grandparents used to be calling me to do stuff, and you would get annoyed as a kid, and then they'll say, "I come here, come."
Yeah.
So yes,
that's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. But okay, in terms of if you ain't get there yet, but you're going. If you are like a relatively healthy person in your mind, can you use physiotherapy? Should you call a physiotherapist, just in terms of like somebody who wants to stay active? Like in our space, many people have desk jobs. And so you go to work, you sit by your desk, for majority of the day. Some people don't get up unless they go into the bathroom or when they enter the building and leave the building, maybe just a lunch break. But most people sit for a very long period of time. Does physiotherapy help with that?
Yes, definitely. So we do have physical therapists who do ergonomic training because poor body mechanics can increase your likelihood of injuries. So I do have a close friend who does ergonomic training for like truck drivers and people who work at like Home Depot or Lowe's. Before they go do all the lifting and packing and warehouse stuff, they engaged, giving them like a stretching program to avoid further like back, hip injuries or hamstring injuries. Now, if you are someone who works out recreationally often, someone like my sister who goes to the gym and lifts and runs and stuff, you know, the more frequent you are with certain activities, as healthy as you are, as you age, you know, you have certain aches and pains, and having a physical therapist or physiotherapist to guide you with proper stretching, who knows about the anatomy, can be helpful. So it's not to say that you have to go like every week or so, but just making sure you have, say, like a monthly or quarterly assessment from a physical therapist. They will be like, hey, when you're at the gym, focus on this, focus on stretching that as well too. And there are physical therapists who are strength and conditioning specialists. So they can give you guided strength exercises and conditioning exercises to help improve your performance as an athlete or as a recreational athlete as well.
You talk about those people who may be working at Lowe's and so on. And I think about in the Tobago and the Caribbean space, a lot of those people may be the equivalent of who here may be working at a hardware, particularly doing the heavy lifting, warehousing, people who work at warehouses, people who are into construction and so on. So like for a lot of the men, especially, you know, our men, they not necessarily too keen on going for any checkup, going to talk to anybody. Many of them may bite the pain until it's too late. But if they are, you know, not exactly experiencing anything serious, I don't know. I was just thinking when you said that maybe those categories of men may want to periodically check with a physiotherapist, you know, just to make sure that they haven't been having too much strain or anything, because once you're lifting all the time, something may happen.
Yeah. A lot of people think because they could rely on their own strength, they could lift anything, and they don't do the correct techniques, like, you know, don't twist while you're lifting and stuff like that. And I can safely say my dad was one of those men. You know, the job that he did as a laborer, you know, you come home, they'll slap some stuff on their knee or their back, or go take a sea bath and feel that that's going to take care of everything, or drink some bush tea.
Yeah.
or go and make a fish broth, or drink some Pacro water and say, yeah, good, I did. But no, under the guided expertise of a physical therapist, to definitely work with like CPEP workers, construction workers, people in the hardware, and even people in offices, THA or any like private institution who are sitting, to do ergonomic training to make sure that they're sitting in an appropriate spine and the neck, to make sure that the desk is at an appropriate height so that they can type and not be bending over and developing carpal tunnel syndrome and straining their trapezius and neck muscles. So there's a space for that, and physiotherapy helps with that too. So it's not to say that you're sick and you have to get a physical therapist for that. I can tell you it definitely helps if you have someone who knows these people, because my friend who does that, she works well with that clientele. So they're very receptive to it. I have another colleague who actually does work with golfers. So he helps them with their golf swing, the body mechanics of the golf swing, to help them to improve the golf swing.
Right.
And that's what he does.
Yeah, because that's some serious twisting there.
There's a lot of things to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's somebody listening to this podcast episode and thinking about getting into physiotherapy, because the thing is, early on you identified that there's so many areas of physiotherapy. And I suppose I've been thinking about, for us in the region, in terms of everyday life and promoting wellness, and trying your best to address issues with health before it gets to the stage where people need to be hospitalized and amputated and that kind of thing. Where can one begin to look in terms of, getting into physiotherapy, particularly when you think about the Caribbean region? Because obviously you're out in the States, you have a much wider base, many possibilities in terms of things that can happen there. But if you've been looking at the Caribbean, what are some of the areas that you think that maybe should be given some consideration to in terms of getting into this field?
Well, Linda, there has been a lot of strides that has been made since I was looking for an option in the Caribbean. So definitely the UE Mona degree is no longer like an associate's degree. So I'm kudos to them for stepping up and improving that program as well too. Now, if the thing with, and I just want to focus on Trinidad and Tobago because that's where I'm from. I know a few other therapists, physiotherapists that practice in the Bahamas and Jamaica, and they're doing successfully well. The one in particular that practices in the Bahamas, she does oncology, physical therapy, and general physical therapy as well too. The ones that I know that practice in Jamaica focus more on orthopedic and sports issues.
Okay.
But there is Dr. Vern in Tobago, in Goodwood, Tobago. She does wounds and chronic illness, because I know the rates of amputation back home because of uncontrolled diabetes is high. And it's sad to see, like, I feel like almost every time I come home and I go visit like an older person in my village, I'm seeing a limb missing, and that's disappointing because it could have been avoided. Mm-hmm. And to me, prevention is better than the cure. So if we find a space to encourage not just like UE Mona, but even to have it at UE St. Augustine or even at KFL, like a more in-depth physiotherapy program aligned with the European model or the US Canadian model of training. Right. So people can be able to practice in the variety of settings that are here. And that would be great. I was talking to Devon Adana a few weeks ago, because I have some colleagues who have been after me. And I know people are going to joke and tell everybody that they've been after me for years with certain activities. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Alex, my podcast partner. He's been after me for 4 years to do ours. But they have been... Dr. Mark Milligan, who is the owner of Anywhere Health, he's been asking me, and this was prior to COVID, so I know COVID threw a wrench into the plans for it, but to host courses in the Caribbean. And one of the first places that they wanted to do it was actually in Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, for us to teach the wider aspects of physiotherapy and provide courses to not only physiotherapists in Trinidad and Tobago, but the Caribbean as a whole, and host it there like as a travel destination continuing education course. Right. To make people more aware, and not only have it available for physiotherapists, but also like outreach programs like in the villages and stuff. The diabetes, how to control eating habits and exercising to limit your ability to have a stroke, how to spot signs lessen the effects of it. If you're aware of what to do and how to act fast, because with a stroke, you have to act fast to be able to prevent further damage. So those were things that we were thinking about. We're gonna get back on it once this COVID stuff eases up. But that's definitely something that I want to do in order to give back. And I'm hoping that, the local government officials will be open to help assisting with programs like these.
Okay, yeah. Well, fingers crossed. We will see how that goes. It would be very, very interesting to see when you guys pitch to them what the response is like. But Doc, let me thank you for taking a whole chunk out of your Saturday. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, one cocoa that's full basket.
It has. Yeah, it has been my pleasure. I mean, I can talk about physiotherapy all day. It's something that I have always been passionate about. Yes, there are a lot of other issues within the profession. But I realized even with that, I had to also position myself to be in leadership in order to offer some platform of representation that, someone who is from the Caribbean, even from Trinidad and Tobago, could see that, hey, this person that grew up in Roxborough, with these parents can actually be on a national board or a state board and, contributing to policies and stuff in the US. Right. So everything that I'm doing right now is to be able to create a platform of representation and to also be able to improve access to care for people who look like me. And I definitely want to see quality of life improved because, my entire family is still back at home. For people on the island of Tobago and greater Trinidad and Tobago as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I definitely wish you all the best with that. Once you keep at it, I think that you're definitely going to achieve what you want to achieve. All right. So we've been chatting with Dr. Monique Caruth, physiotherapist. The whole idea around the podcast is after you've listened to the podcast and you get the information, you will be able to handle your business.
Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business for a very helpful half hour to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business.